lot of what Gym Jones is in the workout community, we just have a reputation as people that work really, really hard. And so people will be asked to leave if they're not giving it their all. There's a saying, you become what you hang around. And I really believe that. I mean, if you're hanging around with hard chargers all the time, you're going to be a hard charger.
What's up, guys? This is Mike Casu. You're listening to the Brute Strength Podcast. We're back in Salt Lake City with Bobby Maximus at Gym Jones. We got Adrian Conway and Jacob Hutton. We got the whole crew back together. If you remember our first podcast together, Rob is the guy that trained Hackspack to win two games championships. He's trained Tommy Hackenbrook for many years, Mandy Janowitz, Adrian Conway, etc. So he is a wealth of knowledge, one of the greatest strength coaches I've ever met, all around good guy. Thanks for having us again, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. Thanks for all the kind words.
We got a quick one for you. We got to get out of here in just a little bit. I'm going to start it off. We just did a little team workout. Me and Rob. Actually, you go ahead and tell it.
So we wanted to do just a team workout. I think that team workouts work better than individual workouts. You know, one of the things with a team is everyone will work harder, and especially if there's some element of competition built into it. And so we did this ladder where you've got 10 10-pound plates on either side of the bar. It makes 245 pounds. You do 10 reps and then strip a 10 off each side. So it drops to 225 and do 10 reps. Then you drop it to 205, do 10 reps. And then 10 at 185, 165, 145, 125, 105, 85, and then 65, and then you work your way back up the ladder. It's 200 total reps. There's two exercises I like to do with this, bench press and back squat. And so Mike and I decided to compete against Adrian and Jake. They get the back squat, we get the bench press, and Mike, it didn't go too well for us at all.
Yeah, I think my nutrition must have been off this morning.
That's what it was. It was the nutrition.
You just look dehydrated.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Not enough water.
Shit. My triceps blew up after about 20 reps, so I was fucked right after that.
Yeah. And that's the kind of thing that if you blow up, there's no coming back from it because it's just constant reps of the same movement. Like if you pace wrong or you're a little bit sore going into it. I mean, my PR, I got a PR today. It was 12 minutes and like 25 seconds or something like that. Yep. But that's taken me as long as 18 minutes. It like the same level of fitness depending how I pace it or how I feel that day.
Right. And then what did we do? We did a 5K ski erg. You can break it up however you want. Me and Rob did 15 strokes and then switched out. And then Adrian and Jake did, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off?
30.
Yeah. And so they beat us by a little bit. Again, my nutrition was off this morning. But so the point I wanted to get to, your fiance brought in some acai bowls.
Yes.
Brought into my mind, post-workout recovery. Can you talk to us about what post-workout recovery is, what's actually going on, and maybe what are some of the myths about post-workout recovery?
So the biggest thing with post-workout recovery is the only reason you're eating after a workout is to replace muscle glycogen. It's not to build muscle. A lot of people think that your muscles are screaming for protein.
Yep.
If you're interested in gaining size, the most important meal is the pre-workout meal, so that by the time your muscles are ready for it, the protein's digested. After the workout, really it's just about muscle glycogen. Now the average human has about 2,000 calories of muscle glycogen on board, 400 stored in the liver for brain function. So we say 1,600 for everybody. And the only way to replace muscle glycogen is with sugar. So the first myth about the post-workout nutrition is that if you do a workout like 5 heavy singles on a deadlift, or you do a short CrossFit type WOD that takes 5 minutes, how many calories do you guys think you burn? I mean, even if you go hard for 5 minutes, you might burn 200 calories, maybe 250.
Yep.
If you've got 1,600 on board of muscle glycogen, you don't need some fancy drink to help replace muscle glycogen. On the other hand, you do a workout like an IWT, an interval weight training workout, or 2 hours of intervals or an endurance workout, and you burn 3,000 calories, you're essentially out of muscle glycogen. So you need some kind of drink or some kind of food. The next myth is that people think that you need 75% carbohydrates, 25% protein. That's like the symbiotic, there's a symbiotic relationship. That's apparently the best way to replace muscle glycogen.
And you can actually see your muscles growing.
You can see your muscles growing. But that that is only true if the person is not taking enough calories in. So if you're not taking enough calories in, the 75-25 formula is what you want. But if you're willing to eat enough calories, 100% carbohydrates will work just as well as the 75-25 formula. Then the final thing is people think it needs to be liquid. That's not true if you eat a high glycemic index food. So if you have something like an apple or golden pineapple or, just straight sugar at that point, like gummy bears or a Coca-Cola, you will replace muscle glycogen, or sorry, not Coca-Cola because it's a liquid, but if you have a solid food that's like a candy or something like that, that will replace it just as fast. So people freak out and they go spend all their money on, there's all kinds of different brands. There's, Progenics and there's Hammer and there's Endurox. Endurox actually patented that 75-25 formula, but you don't necessarily need that. Like that's a supplement for me that I'll use it, if I'm training some clients and then I don't have time for a real meal,
Right.
or I'm running to a meeting, but I'm not willing to spend $60 a month on something that I don't need. The other thing people always forget is that if you're eating 6 times a day, which is what I preach, and you're eating every 3 hours, you're eating after your workout anyway.
Right.
So you generally don't need some kind of special, food. So what I try to do after every workout is just have like what I call from a nutrient standpoint, just a high density meal. So we have these acai bowls with some cherries, with some granola, and maybe that with a high quality source of protein, that's enough for a post-workout meal. Or I'll go home and actually eat just real food or make a shake with an avocado, strawberries, maybe some peanut butter, maybe some orange juice, maybe some actual real protein powder, but just actual real food as opposed to just relying on some chemical powder.
Yep.
What kind of athletes or clients in general do you think post-workout recovery is more important and less important for?
Endurance athletes for sure, because you're going to burn a ton of calories, in 3 hours or 4 hours. I think people that train 2 or 3 times a day, the more you train in a day, because your muscle glycogen is not going to replace right away. It's going to take a while. So if you've got 2 or 3 hard workouts a day, then that becomes more important. And finally, people that are on the go. There are some people that leave the gym and they're headed right to work and they don't have time to have a full meal. And so that might be a time to have some special recovery drink. But if you have a normal schedule and you can eat food, my rule is always eat real food first.
Right.
And listen, I've taken more protein powder than anybody, for example, because, I was born in an era where it was, you need protein powder to get big. But the real secret to getting big is just steak, squats, and milk.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Really, you can't beat that.
Right.
As opposed to having some weird powder that you mix together.
Right. What is Adrian, what does your post-workout meal look like? I know you usually eat a full meal, right?
Yeah, I try to have real food anytime I can. So, if I'm in a pinch and I'm at the gym, no food available, obviously I'll have like a progenic shake. I use their build as a carbohydrate source to mix with it. But if I have the food there, lately I've just been doing chicken and rice. Chicken and rice, especially with all the strength training that I've been doing, trying to get back under some heavy loads. So I try to, make sure that I have, whether it's 6 ounces of chicken and 2 cups of rice ready to rock and roll.
Right.
Just heat it up and put it down.
How about you, Jake? If you're dialed in, what are you going for?
If I'm dialed in, I usually eat like 300 grams of protein a day in food. So I'm eating 5 times a day, off 60 grams. So supplementation really for me, a protein shake, I don't really need it.
Yeah.
But what I use them for is when I do start eating like that, I start getting really, really hungry, and I use them as hunger management because I'm trying to get bigger and diced up. And so if I am still hungry after I eat, I'll throw a shake down just so I don't go eat something bad.
Right. So okay, that leads me into my next question. What do you think for a guy or girl that is trying to maintain muscle mass, maintain performance, but lose fat? How does that affect your post-workout recovery or nutrition in general?
I think that's a tough one to answer because I think everyone's different. At the gym, we kind of teach that training needs to be individualized. So if we've got 3 CrossFit competitors that are the same height, the same weight, the same age, I still don't think I can train them the same because one person's better at an overhead squat, one person's better at a deadlift, one person needs work at muscle ups, one person's got a bad knee. Nutrition is the same. Nutrition has to be individualized to a point. if you're trying to maintain weight, the key is calories. I mean, really what it comes into is calories in and calories out. So if you're trying to maintain weight, you need to eat enough food. If you're a bigger guy and you need to eat, I mean, Jake, I don't know how many calories you try to consume a day, but 6,000, 5,000, 7,000, if you're trying to eat that much food, it's almost impossible to get it down in solid food in a clean form. So shakes for me become a weight management type of thing. Like you were just saying, like you'll have a shake after a meal because it's the only way I can eat enough food.
Right.
On the other hand, if you're trying to get 7,000 calories and trying to do it with broccoli and chicken breast, it's almost impossible.
Right.
Like there's not enough broccoli and chicken breast and sweet potatoes in the world that you can eat to get 7,000 calories.
I think there's a very small number of people that can actually adhere to that, right?
On the other hand, if you've got a girl who is, only allowed to eat 1,400 calories a day, I don't want her drinking her calories at all or having some kind of shake.
No.
Because when you're starving, when I used to cut weight for fighting, I could have a glass of orange juice or I could have 2 apples and a banana. I mean, really for the same caloric intake, and real food will always fill you up more. So I think it depends on the person and, specifically like what weight you're at and how many calories you're allowed.
Word. Let's change topics a little bit. So we're at Jim Jones. You guys are known as kind of a cult. What sets you guys apart from other CrossFit gym or from CrossFit gyms, from other functional fitness gyms? What makes you guys so special?
I think the work ethic that we have can be found in a lot of other gyms. I mean, when you look at different functional gyms, there's some gyms I've been into that are absolutely wonderful places and have got some of the hardest working people I've ever met. I think the biggest thing that sets us apart is that we don't rely on people coming through our doors to pay our bills. Like this gym is more of a project than an actual business. And when you own a gym, for people out there that own gyms, if you need 300 people through the doors every day to keep the lights on, so to speak, the quality of your establishment has to go down. It's hard to find 300 quality athletes. On the other hand, we only have 35 people that train here on a day-to-day basis. So we can be super strict over who we let in here. So every time you come in here, there are people that are working harder than you work. They're willing to eat better than you eat. They take recovery more seriously. They inspire you. You're in a really good environment surrounded by good people. We don't have to let people in because we've got bills to pay. And I think that's what makes this place really, really special, is that culture that we've created.
Right. And it all started with you and Mark. How do you specifically go about doing that? Adrian was talking a while back about how kind of your presence coaching us. You want to talk about a little bit about how, like, your experience with coaching us and everything?
Sure. We were talking before we got started here, and I was saying that, like, there were moments when we were preparing for the CrossFit Games, whether it was 2012 or 2013, where, we consistently trained as a group, and there were those few days, especially leading the closer that we got to compete weekend, that you would show up at the gym, and it was like everyone flipped a new switch. And I'm a coach myself. Mike's a coach. Tommy's a coach. Taylor coached. Aaron, like, we've all had our hand in learning how to inspire each other. And I think obviously we saw each other on a regular basis, so that created a unique environment. But, like, man, when you were there, it seemed to be like there was something special in the air that day. And I guess from a question standpoint, like, when I teach level ones, we talk about presence and attitude. Is there something specifically that you seem to embody, or that you even consciously think about when you're coaching and inspiring other people in order to motivate them? Like, what is it that you do?
Well, I think there's 2 big parts to that. The first one is you have to lead by example. You guys wouldn't listen to me if I wasn't a fit person. And so I'm very careful to post all my workouts on Instagram, on Facebook, like broadcast what I do, but also tell people what I do, because I'm willing to suffer as much as you are. And part of that is I'm never going to ask you to do something that I'm not willing to do myself.
True.
So that's I think you have to lead by example. But the other thing, and for those of you who are football fans, there's a coach named Jimmy Johnson that used to coach Cowboys. And I think he's one of the best coaches ever because he treats every athlete differently. Some people like being yelled at, and some people need a hug.
Sure.
And just because you're the guy that likes yelling at people, that doesn't work for everybody, and it shuts certain people off. So I think a good coach knows how to talk to individual people and can change their style up, and also doesn't have the my way or the highway type of mentality, because that's going to shut people down. And so being able to work with people and talk to people and connect with people and then figure out what makes them tick and alter your coaching style, I think if someone can do that, then they become really, really effective. And above all else, I think also building a good atmosphere, like one of the things I really liked working with you guys was everybody works hard, but everyone liked each other too.
Sure.
It was a real team. There wasn't like a cancer in the locker room, so to speak. That team chemistry, I think, can help a lot too, in terms of how people, how hard people are willing to go. People in a supportive environment with like-minded individuals can do a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
You have to build that right environment.
What are some things so you've worked with a lot of teams in different sports. What are some things that you think make a good team that maybe aren't talked about as much?
Well, I think
obviously we've got to be fit, right?
Yeah.
Other than that,
I think team building outside of the actual sport. So when you look at you could have two types of CrossFit teams, for example, 6 people that show up and work together an hour a day and go their separate ways, or people that text message each other, talk to each other, go to each other's birthday parties, have dinners together. There's a real deep connection there. I think that's super important. But I also think there has to be a healthy level of competition within teammates as well.
Sure.
And, I think that's super important in especially the CrossFit world, because people might only compete 4 times a year or 3 times a year. There are people that can just go to regionals and just go to the games. I know there's other type of events out there, but people don't do them all. So if you're only competing once or twice a year, I think it's hard then when you do go to compete to turn that competitive switch on. So it really helps if Jake and I are training together. We're kind of best friends, but we're also arch rivals. That really, really helps, because that's going to drive you to get better. And then when you compete with somebody, you can just flip that switch. If you don't have that, I don't think you can compete when the time comes. And every bit of competition you get is practice. Every game situation, every pressure situation is practice for the real thing. And so the more you can kind of set that up among your teammates, then every Saturday becomes competition day, or every Wednesday, or every Friday. And I think a main part of your program was every Saturday people would get together and you guys would do stuff and have competitions. And I remember there was a Spartan race you guys did, and then there was a couple of runs you guys did. That's super important, because then when you go to compete, there's no pressure anymore.
Right.
Jake, so you grew up playing very high-level football. What are some similarities you see between that and the experience going to the games this year? What things did you take from there? What things did you learn?
So
And if
football
you didn't
compared to
learn anything,
CrossFit.
that's okay.
What did I learn at the games as far as compared to playing
Or
football?
what did you take from your experience playing football? How did that help you on this team? And what would you have done differently, maybe?
Well, I think all of us played football, all the guys, right? And all of us were, I guess Taylor was a team athlete. I think the biggest thing is we all knew how to deal with each other and how to deal with teammates, right? We knew how to get after each other, but at the same time, you can't talk down on somebody and expect them to perform better.
Right.
So it's if you're in the middle of an event and someone's not pulling their weight, instead of we didn't break down. I mean, obviously we didn't win, but we didn't break down. We tried to bring that person up and motivate them through, and really just let it go after, right? So if somebody broke down in an event, all we did was motivate them and let it go after and go into the next event. And I think that's you learn that in team sports your whole life, right? If you dwell on a loss, then it's just going to snowball on itself.
Right.
So I think that was one thing that carried over from football to CrossFit. What did I learn from the games, though, that I didn't? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
I don't know.
What would you have done differently, or looking back at it, training-wise, would you have done?
Oh, so basically what he said, we weren't you guys going into it. So we were not around each other. Me and Brendan were, that's it, basically. Some of the girls did, but they're super busy. Taylor's had a baby, and other girls that were maybe going to be on the team, she had a baby. So it was they trained when they could.
Right.
Brendan and I trained together almost every day. Tommy's super busy, so he couldn't always be there. So our team chemistry just wasn't there. We never hung out with each other outside of the gym. Me and Brendan and I did because we're friends and we did already.
Right.
But so our team chemistry was nothing like your guys'. We wouldn't meet up and do stuff. We weren't. When you guys were at the games, I would even see your guys' Facebook group, where you guys would just be like back and forth all the time, right?
Right.
Always talking to each other, always meeting up. Like when we would meet up on Saturdays, it was like, maybe we will, maybe we won't. We'd show up. We didn't know what we were doing. We would just like randomly do some stuff.
Right.
So I think that, as far as a team, I think it hurts a little bit. Because once we were like in the fire, we really didn't have like the communication. We hadn't developed like the team unity to kind of like really pick it up.
Right.
Kind of pick that person up like I was talking about. Like we did it because we were already doing that. Like we already knew how to do that as like, because we came up on teams, but we didn't do it like we could have. Like,
Right.
we didn't rely on each other. We didn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we weren't like, I'm going to kill myself for him because we've been
Absolutely.
busting our ass together for the
Right.
last 5 months.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that's my best friend over there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it changed it a little bit.
Yeah. That's not the kind of thing you can force, really.
No,
Is
we
it?
were
I mean,
unique with that, man.
Yeah.
I think the more that I look back and then I see other teams that are extremely talented, we had 6 people that really loved each other, you know, and we were all so different though. Like, I mean, completely different times in our lives. People were, you know, Taylor had a baby before the last one, and Mary and Aaron traveling. You know, you guys making the drive. Like we were coming from completely different realms of life.
Right.
But yeah, we had something special in regards to a common bond that allowed us to really like want to bleed and die for each
Right.
other, and I don't see that a lot.
Like we definitely are all friends and got
Right,
along.
right.
But one thing that hurt us too is we decided after the open, like randomly, last minute.
That's true.
Hey, let's be a team. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like we were all going to go individual, and last minute we were a team. So we just had like a month to train, and that was part of the problem too.
Sure.
Like you guys, before like I even thought about doing CrossFit, that was like my first year. You guys came down and like did a training camp, like stayed together all weekend. So like you developed those bonds. Like, we didn't have time to do that.
Right.
Like, we just put a team together and just like went out there and like, let's
Right.
do it.
And
We're all
I mean,
good. Let's do it.
We had a coach that everyone trusted,
Right.
and no one ever thought, hey, should I be doing something else?
Yep.
Right. I think a lot of teams, a lot of individuals program hop, or they pick and choose from different programs, right? Rather than just sticking and buying into one program. That was one of the biggest things. We never had to worry about that.
Well, and you guys always had mandatory Tuesday, Thursday morning workouts because those were like the IWT day. And then I remember for the Thursday, it was like a power workout and then like a standard girls CrossFit WOD. And I remember being in there and like timing people, getting after
Oh, yeah.
people, like, and it was, you know, you were mandatory there, but there was also mandatory Saturdays, mandatory Friday nights. And then everyone was forced to do all the same recovery stuff too. So you're also looking at the guy across from you knowing that he's doing exactly what you're doing. And he has to like, you know, and everyone also like got after each other. Like you have your ice bath, did you,
Right.
like I'd say among you guys, there was a high amount of accountability. Like the years you guys did well, there was a high amount of accountability. You know, and it's like funny for me to look back on because there's like people that I've coached that I've got a text message 10 times a day and I've got to be on and I've got to hold their hand. With you guys, I almost just had to show up twice a week and be like, hey, do this. And you guys all policed each other and held each other accountable. And, you know, Tommy at that time too, he took a really active leadership role in that as well.
For sure.
You know, and I think it's important to have somebody there too that is like not just coming from an outside source. It's trying to put everything together. I mean, when I was wrestling at university, we had a coach, we had an assistant coach, but we also had 4 people that, you know, essentially were team captains that were just on everybody all the time about what they should and shouldn't be doing.
Right.
And you couldn't get away with anything because it's also really hard. Like you look at, it's funny with the term coach, and I hate it just because I think that's a special term. And you guys have played all football, so you've had a coach. But if you look at 55, like a 55-man roster in the NFL or 58 or whatever it's at, how many coaches does it take to make that thing go? You got a head coach, an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, a line coach, another line coach. You got a linebackers coach, a secondary coach. You got a wide receivers coach, a quarterback coach. I mean, you're looking at a coach for every 3 or 4 people.
Right.
Yep.
But now you're going to call me a coach, and I'm in charge of 300 people at a gym. There's no way I can potentially coach 300 people. Not the way a coach is meant to be,
Sure.
you know, to be construed. So even with 6 people, it's hard. But then if you have a person on the team or a couple people on the team, they're all holding each other accountable, that's when stuff can get really good. And everyone wants to say they work hard. And I think you guys are some of the most dedicated people I've ever met. But have you drunk enough water today?
Right.
Did you eat enough food today? Did you pack your snack? Did you check your text messages during the workout or did you not? every single person can look back on the day before and realize they haven't done everything perfectly, or they could have done more. It helps to have somebody on you. I mean, I wish I had a voice in my ear, somebody that was like, do this, do this, do this, do this, because you can slip. So you guys had a really good accountability among each other too.
Yeah, I agree.
You're up, man.
All right, so this was huge in our training this year, and this was like, I know was big in their training, the IWT days. So
Changed my whole life.
that was, the
Straight up.
IWTs were one of the days that we always got together, though. Well, we tried at least. At least 4 of us were there together. Because like you were saying earlier, we were talking about it. It's hard to push yourself I can't be hitting 650 every round on a row. But for you to do that every time, like it's hard to do that without someone next to you that's pushing you to do that. And someone next to you is doing 590 or something. So anyway, we just kind of wanted you to talk about the IWTs a little bit, break them down a little bit.
Where did they even come from?
Yeah,
Maybe we could start there.
So they're from a guy named Pat O'Shea, who, I'm not sure if he invented them necessarily, because like people say I invented circuit training or I invented IWTs, but like from a classical sport history background, people have been lifting and running since, before Jesus was born. So it's not nothing new. But the IWT was essentially invented by Pat O'Shea, and it's a series of lifting, cardiovascular exercise, and then rest. And there's going to be 3 phases of that. So phase 1, you're supposed to do a power lift, followed by 2 minutes of cardiovascular activity. The cardiovascular activity has to be at 90 to 95% max heart rate, which most people don't understand how hard that is.
Right.
We have this kind of thing, this chart in the gym we use to describe how hard it is. And if you're going 65% max heart rate, it's conversational pace. 75 to 80 is choppy conversational. 85 to 90, single syllables are possible. 90 to 95, you're not fucking talking. So if we're rowing an IWT and I'm like, hey, Adrian, can you, I'm not working hard enough.
Right.
Like people don't understand how bad 90 to 95 is. Then you get a 2-minute rest period. You do that 3 rounds. Then you get a 5-minute intermission and you repeat essentially the format, but you use a strength exercise instead of a power exercise, a different cardiovascular activity than a rest period, 3 rounds, 5-minute intermission, and then you do a bunch of structural stuff to round out the day. The reason power is in the first phase is because you are neurologically fresh in the first phase. By the time the second phase comes around, you've got nothing left. Although I will say this, for a CrossFit application,
Sure.
It's an exception. I'm not trying to protect the integrity of the Olympic lift from a neurological standpoint. In fact, I want to train you guys to be really good at Olympic lifting in tired conditions, so you could arguably switch them.
Yeah.
But the key is lift, cardio, rest, lift, cardio, rest. And I think this is applicable to functional fitness, and especially the CrossFit world, for a couple of reasons. Number one, the big lifts are stuff that you guys need. You have to be good at a clean and jerk or a clean. You need to be good at a snatch. You need to be good at a deadlift or a front squat. So it's functional for your sport. Number two, you're exhausting yourself, so you're forcing yourself to lift in a tired condition, which is something you guys are going to see again and again and again. And then people underestimate this, but in the CrossFit world, I think recovery is as important as the actual event, because everyone can do a 3-minute event hard, but how do you recover from that and be able to do something else again? And if you look, say, at a competition that's 3 to 4 days long and there's 8 events, recovery is arguably more important than the actual events. And I saw it with your team, like the years you guys won, you guys would be tied going into day 2 or 3, and then you'd start to crush people because they couldn't recover like you guys recovered. So I think the IWTs for that reason are super beneficial. And then you can also tailor it to kind of the CrossFit world, where in the rest period when you're supposed to be resting, make people practice muscle ups, make them practice ring dips, give them stuff that they can start to, incorporate. Because, we were talking earlier, Jake, about how, CrossFit programming is essentially motherfucking shoulder day. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And there are so many skills that you need to be good at. Like, you've got to be good at what happens if you see a rope climb. I mean, like if you haven't climbed a rope, you're in trouble because there's a whole skill to that.
Yeah, my first regional, I kind of just got thrown into the fire. Didn't really think I needed to learn how to climb them.
Yeah.
Fucked me pretty bad.
But you could have
got a rope on my face.
You could have ring dips. You could have handstand walks. You could have, there's 100 exercises you've kind of got to be good in. So the IWTs also cover a bunch of exercises off too, which means you're getting the technical practice you need.
So I think we were I think we started to do that when we were still with you, but we've started to add things like, 2 minutes of max burpees, toes to bar, stuff like that. How do you feel about that? How does it change the whole equation?
Well, I think from a cardiovascular standpoint, I think burpee pull-ups are harder than a row will ever be. I mean, nobody likes doing burpee pull-ups for 2 minutes, and I would give them to you guys. The plus with that is you're doing something you're going to see in competition. The danger to that is on a program like the program you guys were on, there was so much volume in there that you can go over the edge really easy. And if guys do and they're not careful, that's when you get all those overuse injuries. And that's the hard thing to judge. I mean, you think about when you do burpees, the amount of force your pecs and your shoulders have to absorb on the way down, like the eccentric loading.
Yep.
You put too many burpees in a week, you end up with a blown pec or you end up with a blown shoulder. So for stuff like that, I think it can be very valuable. You just have to, you can't put it in haphazardly. You have to have an eye on the whole plan.
Right. So you mentioned recovery a little bit ago, and I'm just sitting here thinking the number one thing I've heard from that I experienced training with you and that we've heard from our athletes is that the low, slow cardio helps their recovery. Why do you think that's beneficial in the first place, and why should people not skip that stuff?
Well, it's funny. People take creatine as a supplement, but the number one way to essentially supplement your creatine is by doing endurance training. So an endurance athlete who has a high aerobic base, their creatine recharges. Their creatine systems essentially recharge quicker, so you can lift more often. You also, from an overall recovery standpoint, you flush better, so you recover quicker between efforts and during efforts, which is super important. So you see somebody that has a big cardiovascular base, they can recover in 30 seconds or 40 seconds. So if you were to take two people, so we take somebody from, I'm looking out the window here at a gas station across the street. You can arguably pull somebody over that gas station and they can go really hard for a minute. And you go really hard for a minute, they'll probably die or, be in the hospital, rhabdo, or be done for 24 hours. Whereas you can go hard and in a minute, you can recover and go hard again. And that's where that cardiovascular base really helps. But it also really helps over a 4-day event, series of events, that between efforts, you're less sore, you can do more work, you can come back fresher. And the higher threshold you have, the less certain things cost.
Right.
So if you have a really big cardiovascular base built up, you can row a 2,000 meter row for time and 2 hours later do it again. You don't have that cardiovascular base built up, you could be sick for 2 days. And so that's where it's super important. But people don't, there's a couple of things here that I teach at seminars. First of all, it's a bad business model to teach people that endurance is good. Because you guys have gyms, you want people in your gym. You don't want to kick them out 2 months of the year to do endurance work because now you're losing money.
Of course.
And you have to now convince them that, hey, my hour, you can do everything in an hour. Like this is the thing that you need to do. You don't want to start selling them on 3-hour programs because you're losing money and your system is not working anymore. So that's a major issue there. But then the other part of it is people don't want to do the endurance stuff. I mean, we all hate doing stuff we like. When I was in university, and it's a story that relates to this, I had a chance to get on the Olympic trials kind of ladder, and I lost to a guy named David Zilberman, 7'5" and 7'6" in a wrestle-off. And in wrestling terms, that's super close, and it's something that's always like burned me a little bit. If you guys ask me how many hours of videotape I watched on that guy in 5 years, the answer is between -1 and 1. So it's 0. But I played a lot of PlayStation, hung out with a lot of people, did a bunch of stuff. I wasn't willing to watch video, but nobody could tell me I didn't work hard.
Right.
Because I was willing to murder myself in practice. But that's the stuff that really matters. So the other part of endurance is people don't want to do it. And I get that you don't want to do it, but you want to win too. And you have to do it to win.
Right.
And you'll see systems like I teach at the seminar, like for example, CrossFit Endurance. It's a 5-hour program.
Right.
I will tell people if you only have 5 hours, people are shocked that I'll say this, if you only have 5 hours to train, it's probably the best program I've seen written for somebody that has 5 hours to train.
Right.
But if you want to compete in a marathon, you can't train 5 hours a week. You have to train a minimum of 13 to even be considered reasonable.
Right.
And so if you're only want to do 5 hours, that's the most you can get. And I see it with these, the CrossFit team stuff. If you're not willing to train 17 hours a week and then put another 10 into recovery, I'm sorry, you can't play the sport anymore.
Nope.
Like, I get you want to do it on 5, but I'm not going to happen.
Right. Why do you think some of these guys, the older guys like Chris Spieler and Matt Chan, are able to do one workout a day? Because they've gone and done really well at the games, but I don't think people really understand the work that was put in before these last few years that they've competed. What do you think's going on there?
Well, training doesn't exist in a vacuum. Like, if you've got a 10-year
Right.
history of training,
Exactly.
you can train once a day for a year and still maintain a super high level of fitness. You can almost even look at it as a taper year for that example. You know, you look at somebody like Michael Phelps, who he swam for 1,300 hours a year. Now, to put that in perspective, he's in a pool from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. every day, Monday to Friday, for 10 years of his life. That's fucked up. Like,
It's crazy.
that's why he's won 27 gold medals. Well, if he takes a year off swimming like he did, he can come back and still be really good because he's got this huge base built up. So you can't just look at Matt Chan's program and decide, well, I'm going to only train once a day, because you don't have the base that guy has. And the other thing with the aged athlete, you also have to train less.
Of course.
I remember talking to a guy named Randy Couture about this. And when I used to fight in the UFC, we used to chat back and forth just about training stuff. And, you know, I'll never forget, he said to me, Rob, I can do everything you do in a 2-hour training session. In fact, I can do it better. The difference between you and I is I can do that Monday and Thursday and Saturday. You can do it Monday morning, Monday afternoon, Monday night. Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday night. So the older you get, you can still do the intensity, but you can't have the volume, and you've got to be careful because you'll start
Of course.
breaking down. And that's something that, like, you know, I'm only 37 years old, but I look back at when I was 25 and the volume I used to do. I don't think I can do that now. I've had to. Doesn't mean I don't work hard. I've just got to be smarter about it.
Right. So kind of going along with that, you're getting older. What are some of the recovery tools that you use that maybe aren't talked about as much? You know, everyone knows you can go sit on a foam roller for an hour a day, but what are some of the things that you use that are kind of like the biggest bang for your buck type stuff?
I'm actually writing an article about one of them right now, sleep. Sleep's the best anabolic you can get. You know, people don't realize if you sleep 10 hours a night in a completely blacked out environment, your body can produce up to 50% more human growth hormone. That's like taking an injection. And the first thing people always cut is sleep. You can't. I use the iPhone analogy. If you leave your house and your iPhone or your Samsung Galaxy or your Android or whatever it is only on 10% charge, how well does that phone work?
Right.
You can't text message your friends. You can't check Instagram. You can't use Google Maps. It's useless. You leave on 100% charge. That thing's a good tool the whole day. So you think your bed is the charger and you're the phone. You need a full charge every single night. And sleep's what really allows you to do the work. So we do things, in my house at night where 45 minutes before bed, screens get shut off. No more TV, no more computer, no more phone, because they give off a light that tells your body to stay awake. The lights start to get dimmed. We have a bedtime routine. You have a shower. You have a familiar pair of pajamas you put on, maybe a lotion that smells a certain way that tells you it's time to sleep. And we don't check our emails. Like, there's no email you need to answer at 10:30 at night.
Nope.
If you guys need to get a hold of me, you have my home phone number, and you can call my home, and I'm going to assume it's emergency. But if you email me, you don't need an answer for at least, a day. So we shut all that stuff down and then go to bed at a reasonable time, 10:30 at night, sleep in a completely blacked out environment. The other thing we do is we've arranged our lives where we don't do anything before 9 a.m. So we never have to wake up to an alarm clock. Because when you wake up to an alarm clock,
Yep.
you are tired and you get scared awake by that alarm. So the first thing that sets it up is sleep. And if you can have a good sleep pattern like that, then you're superhuman all day. And, you get, Adrian and Jake, do you guys get like 8 hours, 9 hours a night? Or do you try it?
Not right now,
I
but
do.
So
About 9.
you guys are in a different boat. If you start getting 10 hours a night, you'll see like a huge gain in everything you do in 3 weeks. If I start giving you 4, you'll fall apart.
Oh, completely.
Like, you can't cope. So that's the first thing. The second thing is nothing mimics overtraining like not eating enough food. So the other people are worried about vanity and their abs and looking ripped and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
You need fuel to do your thing. And most Olympic athletes are at 10% body fat. For the best ranger competition in the military, the average of the winners over the last 20 years was 13%. But guys who want to sit at 6 or 5 because of vanity, you fall apart. So you've got to eat enough food. So that's the second thing. And those things set up overall recovery. And then the other 3 tools I use more than anything are an ice bath, number 1.
What's your protocol for that?
Ice baths that are used incorrectly, they're not so effective for muscle soreness. Like the leg and bench press thing we did today, you're going to be sore tomorrow. There's nothing you can do to prevent that. That's not the time for an ice bath. An ice bath is useful, and you guys have had this happen to you when you do a workout and you shower. Like you were talking about your wedding earlier. So you have a workout and then you shower, and then an hour later you're still sweating. Your body can't heal because its core temperature is too hot. An ice bath is what you use then to cool yourself down. So you use it after interval workouts, endurance workouts, and hard IWT workouts or hard circuits where you're burning and sweating for a long time. So ice baths are really good. It's 50 to 70 pounds of ice in a bathtub and sit in it for 15 minutes. Like people do this dramatic shit where they've got a little beanie on and a scarf and like they make a big thing of it on Instagram. Almost every Olympic athlete in the world is having an ice bath. Like it's not that big of a deal. Suck it up and get in and do it and get out. I'll answer emails or talk on the phone when I'm in an ice bath. It's not anything special. I get a massage once a week, which is super important. A massage, I guess it's dependent on the massage therapist. The better the massage therapist is or the more they work with athletes, the better you're going to be. And I work with a guy, Derek Draper. I think you guys have seen him. He'll actually massage me and he'll be like, have you been box jumping a lot this week? Yeah, how do you know that? He's like, well, your hamstrings are tight here. You need to back off. So if you have a good person you see every week, you get good training knowledge. And then the third thing is actually not a foam roller. It's a recovery walk every day. And to me, that's meditation. Someone asked me if I meditated once and I made fun of them. What do you mean if I meditate? It's weird. And I started to think about it. And every day I'll go for a half-hour walk. And my phone's not in my hand. You know, I put on a good playlist, and it's my 30 minutes a day to completely check out and not be connected. That makes me feel so much more refreshed for the second half of the day. And it's something that can help your marriage too. Like, you know, you tell me you don't have time to go for a recovery walk. If you and Ash take a walk every day and hold each other's hands and like have a talk about your day, nothing will strengthen your marriage like a one-on-one connection like that, and you're recovering at the same time. So, you know, those 3 things are what I incorporate beyond sleep and nutrition. If I can do those all the time, I feel superhuman and can train hard all the time. If I don't, training volume suffers.
Everything else just is like a little icing on top of the cake at that point, right?
Yeah, and you can never over-recover. I mean, that was another key for your team. It was like the 2 weeks before. I don't care if you need it or not. You're having an ice bath every day. You're walking every day. Get a massage every second day. You can never over-recover. Like, keep putting it in the bank. So if you're bored tonight watching TV, you're on a foam roller. Go for a walk twice a day. Have an ice bath twice a day. And then you're going to start seeing a lot of results from your actual workouts. But that's what separates, I think, the men from the boys. The people that are willing to do, you know, to work hard, they're willing to do all that stuff people don't care about. And I was hearing stories about some, you know, teams this year at the games that were like doing crazy hard workouts on Tuesday or Wednesday. And they were going into the games in a beat down state. You've ever heard of a taper? Like even in Olympic sport, like running, like 100 meters, Usain Bolt, he got a lot of heat the last Olympics because he came second in the Jamaican qualifier. And he's like, my goal is not to win the Jamaican qualifier, it's to win the Olympics. And so he gets one good run every 4 years. That's, you know, that's the way it works. So with the recovery stuff, you've got to over recover if you want to, you know, do well in there.
It's true, which is hard to do.
Absolutely.
It's hard to do in our sport specifically. I feel like you mentally feel like you always need to be doing more to keep up with the best. And it's like, man, you really have to trust your training and trust like the direction of your whole year in order to do that appropriately, because it's hard.
Well, it's also going hard enough. Like if someone does, because you guys have all done an IWT, if someone does an IWT and like 2 hours later they're like, well, I need to work out again. Like, you didn't go hard enough. If you do an IWT right, you don't want to work out again for 48 hours. That's the key, is like go really hard when it's time to go hard. And when it's time to rest, there's like nothing in between. Like you were full on rest mode.
When we finished IWTs, I was like praying about how I would get through the 60-minute row that was going to take place that night. Just didn't even know how it was going to happen.
Fucking terrible.
You know? Like, Mike, the last thing you want to do is bench press again.
No.
You know what I mean?
I'm gonna take another month off.
Yes.
But I got a couple more quick questions. Y'all jump in if you have anything. What's an athlete, a current athlete that's still playing some kind of sport that you look up to?
Oh man, that's pretty tough. I would say the number one person that I look up to, and it's funny, I would say Kobe Bryant, just because of his work ethic. Like, you know, some people say he doesn't have a good reputation, like he's not the nicest guy in the world.
Who cares?
But this is a guy who watches game film from the 1960s. Like, he doesn't just watch it from now. He's so driven on winning. He's having a rough season because he's older.
Sure.
He's got some injuries, but just from a work ethic perspective, to me, that's amazing that somebody's willing to put that much into something. So, you know, he's somebody I really admire on that level, because the biggest thing for me is hard work. I think that if you work hard enough, you can be anything you want to be in this world. A lot of people just don't have the work ethic. And so I try to look at people and admire people who just have that raw work ethic to do stuff again and again and again and again and again. So he's somebody that I look up to on that regard, from a hard work standpoint.
Right. This is one for people that have a home gym or want to have a home gym. What are the 3 most important pieces of equipment that someone can put in their home?
Shit. Nothing, and nothing.
Okay.
I mean, I say that sarcastically,
Right.
but it's like, I need a barbell, I need a piece of equipment, I need a squat cage, how about you just do burpees all the time?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's this one workout we do called prison burpees, where you do 20 burpees, run across the room like you're in a prison cell, 19, 18. It's 210 burpees for time. If you did that 5 days a week, you'd be the fittest person alive. Or if you woke up and did max push-ups, pull-ups, and a run. That said, for the house, I think a rower would be a great choice to have. A lot of people buy a $3,000 treadmill, $4,000 treadmill. They fall apart. A rower is almost indestructible. They're only $900. You know, it's a great tool to have. I think a kettlebell is a great tool to have, because you can do so much with it. You have a 53-pound kettlebell, you can do goblet squats, you can do single arm bench press, you can do floor press, you can do head cutters, you can do overhead press, you can do swings. It's just a versatile piece of equipment, and then a box to jump on. I mean, we build boxes at my house that are 20 by 24 by 30. So you've got 3 dimensions.
Yep.
So you could really stack all your equipment in a closet, and now you can do box jumps. You could do essentially dead stop goblet squats off of the box. You can do step ups. I think if you had those 3 pieces of equipment, you'd be fine. But at the same token, like I said, if all you did was push ups, pull ups,
Right.
Dips. I mean, we were in, me and my fiance were in North Carolina at her grandparents' house, and they didn't have anything, but they had a 2nd-story balcony, and I did a bunch of pull ups off of it. Like, you can find almost anywhere to train if you're willing. So,
Love it. You got anything else?
Shoot, man, I got I think I don't got any kids yet, but I know you got Beanie, and I think you, from what we see on social media, man, you're a great dad. Talk about like how you lead him as a young man. Like, I mean, you guys seem to have a really tight relationship. I see videos of him like crushing workouts and 2K row PRs and all this other stuff. Like, how have you incorporated like your lifestyle as a coach and trainer with leading him as a young man?
you know, I think the biggest thing kids learn from is example. They learn a lot more by what you do than what you say. And that even goes for adults. Like when I say lead by example, you got to do it in all regards. And he's grown up in a world, because I was essentially a single dad for, a couple of years.
Right.
And when he's been brought into a world where I remember workouts, I've got pictures of him. I posted one the other day of him in a diaper doing skier. Like he's been literally raised in this environment. So he's just seen it. I think with kids, the important thing is to never force them to do anything because they'll revolt at some point. Like you don't have any business telling a kid to do a workout for time or, something like that. But if he wants to do it, I'm not going to stop him either. So he comes in, some days he plays, some days he just, crushes workouts, but he's been exposed to it. And it's funny, he actually taught me a lot about training. There was a situation where it was a Sunday morning and he goes, "Dad, are you going to go to the gym today?" And I'm like, "No." He goes, "Why not?" "Because it's Sunday." And Sunday for me, like you guys played football, you play a game on Saturday, you rest on Sunday.
Yep.
Then, you know, we would wrestle on Saturday. Sunday was always a day off, and so that became a habit. And then he's like, but Dad, I went to a seminar and you told people that you need to work every day if you want to get better. Like, fuck off, Beans. Like, I just want to rest. Like, why are you making me feel like this? He goes, Dad, you also have to lead by example. I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude, like, you can't, you're killing me. And so I started thinking about it, and to him, working out every day is as normal as putting your socks on. Mm-hmm. He couldn't comprehend like why we weren't going to work out on a Sunday. So I started asking myself, why don't I work out on a Sunday? I don't fight anymore. I don't. Well, now I get 52 extra days a year of volume working out on a Sunday, which is, you can do a lot, 52 workouts. I mean, imagine 52 IWTs, how much more fit you would be.
Right.
It kind of changed my perspective, but that just shows you that he was raised in this environment. And we do stuff. If we watch TV at home, I'm doing push-ups while we watch TV, and he does it too. Like, he just sees that you can constantly do more work, more and more stuff. The other thing is, I'm super supportive with him. Like I said, I don't yell at him if he messes up. I'm not, one of those hockey dads that's like beating their kid if they don't do well enough. Super supportive. And the other thing I think parents need to do is spend time with their kid and really connect with them. Mm-hmm. Like, they kind of drag the kid shopping and they drag the kid on all their errands and stuff. But like, when's the last time you saw dad sit down with their kid for 10 minutes and be like, how are you feeling? Yeah. How's your day? What do you think about this? Like, what do you, and then you give them ownership and stuff. Like, if you look over there where the squat racks are, the squat racks could have been placed there or they could have been placed down there. It doesn't really matter. I'll ask them. Where do you want the squat racks? Like, give them a choice, and we do that at home too.
That's awesome.
It's not really a choice, but it's a choice, and that's a good coaching trick for people.
Of course.
I shouldn't tell this to people because then like my tricks are ruined. But like, Jake, we're gonna do something today. I don't give a shit whether you do the skier or the rower, like in my head. But I'm gonna come up to you and I'm gonna be like, rather than just say you're doing the rower, I'm gonna be like, hey man, listen, your choice today. What do you want to do? The minute you have a choice and ownership in it, you'll automatically work harder.
Sure.
So that's the the other thing. Like, give them ownership.
Yeah, that's great.
I love it,
Awesome.
man. All right, that's a good place to end. Where can people learn more from you, read what you're writing, all of that kind of stuff? Where can they go to find you?
On Instagram, it's at Bobby Maximus. On Twitter, it's at Bobby Maximus. Obviously, you can go to www.jimjones.com. I write for Breaking Muscle every month. So if you go to Breaking Muscle and search coaches, you can find me there. And then also if you search Men's Health, because I'm a contributing, expert for them every week. And with the internet, like, I think it's a great source of, I told you guys before, like, Jake, I've never met you, but some of this inspires me. I stalk your, page sometimes. Like, the internet, you can get so many good sources of information. And I remember reading something about you, Adrian, that like really got me thinking in a different way. You had a post maybe a year ago about how people were always rip on the Global Gym.
Right.
Like in non-functional training, but your post said something about, like, that's where I built my base. Like, a lot of my strengths for this came from here.
Yep.
And so the internet can be a great source. And then the Brute Strength website, obviously, like, I learn a lot from just looking at stuff online. Like, you can get a lot of stuff that really helps you. There's evils in social media, don't get me wrong, but there's also so much good stuff from that. And I try to post workouts every day and tips and stuff like that. Right. So that's where I access it.
Awesome, man. A couple more things. If you haven't already signed up for the newsletter, go to www.brutestrengthtraining.com. We'll keep you up to date with what we're doing, videos posted, blogs written, stuff like that. Also, check out the new Brute Compete program headed up by Adrian Conway. That is for athletes that only have 60 to 90 minutes a day to work out. So it's about to kick off on Monday. So if that's you, go ahead and sign up. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having us, brother.
Thank you.
That was fun. Yeah.